You're watching France24 and it's time now for our daily look at the international press. Chris Moore joins me now in the studio. Good morning, Chris. Let's start with the French papers. It's been a very unsettled night outside Paris. What does everybody make of it?
Well, the French press very much dominated by a second night of trouble in the Parisian suburbs. Le Monde, the centre-left daily, leads on a first report by the police monitoring body, which seems to suggest that the police weren't responsible for the accident that triggered this. But that's not, as we heard in the report earlier, eased tensions. Le Monde talks about a senior regional police officer who tried to reason with local youths. He ended up in hospital with 3 broken ribs and his car was torched. One local mayor calls this Clichy Mark II, reference there, of course, to the deaths of youths in Parisian suburbs back in 2005, which sparked weeks of rioting across the whole of France. If we take a look at centre-left Libération here, quite a striking image on their front cover, and their headline really worrying that this could spread to engulf the whole of France. There's a lot of images on Libération's website as well. Being cynical, the images like these, I mean, they're good for TV and good for newspapers. When this happened in 2005, this spread across the world very quickly, and there are signs this time that the world's press is starting to pick up on this. The Daily Telegraph in the UK gives a lot of coverage to the story, and it says that these riots are going to be a test for French President Nicolas Sarkozy. He, of course, was Interior Minister back in 2005 and made some infamous comments about racaille or rabble in the banlieue, the suburbs of Paris, who he blamed as responsible for these problems.
Moving on to the international press now, Chris, I'm guessing it's all dominated by Annapolis. What do the various papers across the world make of it?
It's very much dominated by Annapolis, yes. A mixed reaction, I have to say. Starting in Israel with the Jerusalem Post, they focus on the centrality of Gaza to the whole peace process. The headline quotes Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, saying the Palestinian Authority must fulfill its security obligations under the roadmap, including the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip, before there can be any Palestinian state. They carry an interview with Palestinian negotiator Saeb Erekat. He acknowledges Gaza as the big problem for the Palestinians, but says Israel has hardly fulfilled its commitments under the roadmap either, especially in terms of halting settlements. Israeli paper Haaretz has a nice analysis piece illustrating how Palestinian negotiators have learned to lower their expectations over the years in terms of getting any concessions out of Israel. They describe Erekat and his negotiating team turning up for a meeting with the Israeli foreign minister. Now, when they got there, they discovered there was nobody there. Apparently, they were eventually picked up by Israeli officials, but the paper commends them for not threatening a walkout, which might have happened in the past. Lebanese daily Le Moyen-Orient du Jour carries a front-page cartoon of Olmert and Palestinian Authority leader Mahmoud Abbas saying, "Let's jump at this occasion." The only problem is they're depicted jumping out of an aeroplane on a parachute. The implication there that neither has any idea where these Annapolis talks are going to land. A wider view on the whole thing comes from Algeria's Liberté. They say they've got unreserved criticism, really, for US President George W. Bush, saying this conference is nothing but a diversion to try and save face over the war in Iraq. They say Bush has neglected Israel-Palestine for the last 7 years, and Iraq has turned the region into a production centre for extremists and terrorists.
And very quickly, Chris, there is something to smile about, however, in the Japanese press. Tell us about that.
There is, yes. The French paper, it's actually the French paper Le Figaro, which brings us news that from 2008, Japan will be deploying its very own RoboCop. You're not dreaming, it's a mechanical cop to take the strain of low-level law enforcement off human police officers in shopping malls and airports. If you look at the photograph, it's not quite as daunting looking as the RoboCop from the film, but Reborg Q, as it's called, is capable of patrolling shopping malls and airports and picking out suspected criminals from the crowd.
Just don't send it to the suburbs. Chris Moore, thank you very much indeed for that international press review. Stay tuned to France 24.